Hi there, well, thanks for waiting. This is part 6 of What If Kamen Rider Decade was in RWBY. So let's start. Chapter 12, Speculations and Unfamiliarity. What would anyone gain from creating another Riders? AG asked. That's the thing, Tsukasa said. Swartz created them so that Zio would collect all the Riders' powers and merge the timelines. That was also why he stole the power of Decade. Yes. Thank you for reminding me, as much as he didn't want to admit it, Tsukasa was a little bit peeved that he let himself fall for that trap. There's not much other reason to try and create one. Things just keep escalating, isn't it? First Foundation X, now the Another Riders, AG complained, and then there's the Salem person Ajban mentioned. Salem? Was asked, being the only one who wasn't in the first meeting with Ajban earlier that day. That's another thing entirely. It has absolutely nothing to do with the Another Riders. Hey, do you think Foundation X is the one creating the Another Riders? AG raised a valid point. Fortunately, or unfortunately, if you look at it another way, Tsukasa had long since crossed them out of the equation. I doubt that is the case. Another OO appeared here in Beacon, far away from where they were operating. Not to mention the fact that Foundation X should even know that the Another Riders existed in the first place. How about you, Waz? Do you have any idea who could be responsible? There is one person, Waz admitted, Hiria Kakogawa. And how would he do that? Tsukasa also found that to be unlikely. The Another Zio Ridewatch was destroyed. I agree with you. But we should consider all possibilities, regardless of the probabilities. Someone else who can create another Riders. Tsukasa mumbled to himself. In the time he spent in the world of Zio, only the Time Jackers had shown that ability. And now all of them were rewritten into the new timeline the King of Time had created. So, what's your name? The girl who had found him, Penny Polandina, asked him as they were walking to wherever this professor was. My name? It's Sugo Tokiwa. The teen answered. It's nice to meet you, Sugo. Penny answered cheerfully, why do you want to meet Professor Kadoya? To tell you the truth, I have no idea. Someone told me that he could help me with my problem. Hopefully, that man was right, and this Tsukasa could actually help him. Problem? What is troubling you, Dash? Penny! Someone else called out. Less than a split second later, a red blur passed by him and nearly collided with said person. You're all right. I couldn't find you earlier, so I thought something happened. The blur turned out to be a younger girl with black hair and silver eyes. She also had a gigantic scythe. Don't worry, RWBY. I was not harmed by those monsters. Penny replied. Sugo assumed she was talking about the Another Riders from earlier. RWBY. Don't just go running off on us. A group of 7 teenagers about his age came from behind Sugo, sprinting after RWBY. Come on, Yang. It's not like another monster would just drop out of the sky today. RWBY told a blonde girl, what are the chances of that happening again? Excuse me, but who are you? I've never seen you around here before. A black-haired girl directed her attention at him. It seemed that she was wary of him for whatever reason. Him? He's my friend, Sugo. Penny declared. While he didn't mind making friends with new people, Sugo was slightly surprised that she would say that so shortly after they met. Well, any friend of Penny is a friend of mine. I'm Ruby Rose. RWBY introduced herself. Why were you two heading for the teacher's quarters? A black-haired boy dressed in green clothes asked. Oh, Sugo needs to talk with Professor Kadoya about something. Penny answered without missing a beat. The professor? Who are you? How do you know him? An orange-haired girl asked, are you another one of those armored guys? Sugo wanted to say no. Of course, he was not. But, once again, something was telling him that he was wrong. No? Another one? What's going on? Nora didn't seem to believe him at all. What do you want to talk about with the professor? A white-haired girl asked him. She seemed very interested in his problem. Sugo was not really sure how he could explain over the last hour without looking a bit crazy. He wasn't even sure where even he was. Weiss, that's not any of our business, Ruby said to her friend, but let's accompany him to see the professors. It was obvious the silver-eyed girl was also curious about him. Hang on. I thought we were just gonna take it easy for the rest of the day? A blonde-haired boy cried out. Now that he got a good look at the group, all of them were scuffed up and looked worse for wear. Well, yeah. But this would not take long. Ruby replied. It'll be fine, John. A red-haired girl with bronze armor tried to comfort the other boy. Great. Let's all go together. Penny cheerfully said before taking off for what Sugo assumed to be the teacher's quarters. Come on. With no choices left and basically dead tired from this day, Sugo followed her. So, Sugo, where are you from? Ruby was trying to make some small talk. The group of 10 were conversing with themselves as they continued walking. All of them had already introduced themselves to him. Me? I'm from Tokyo. Sugo answered truthfully, not knowing that he was in another world. Tokyo? Where's that? Is that near Mistral or something? Yang interrupted them. Where's Mistral? That proves it. You are one of those armor guys. Nora came out of nowhere, dragging Rin with her. How is it that both you and Professor Hino not know of the Four Kingdoms? Weiss questioned with a disgruntled tone. Once again, Sugo felt like he knew who Hino was, but the reason continued to elude him. Four Kingdoms? Again? Anyway. John interrupted this time, how do you know Professor Kadoya? To be honest, I have no idea. I was just told to find him. Sugo admitted. Despite his lack of knowledge regarding the strange man who brought him here, he felt he could at least trust the stranger that Tsukasa could help him. And that is why I must stop you. A dark voice rang out, making the group stop in their tracks. From out of the shadows, another rider emerged. One that gave Sugo a massive headache. You are. The another rider was mostly magenta, with its arms and its inner leg being whitish-gray. Black streaks ran across its body. If one were to squint a bit, one would think that the another rider's head resembled an eagle. Even if the group didn't instantly recognize the monster, the words written on its chest gave away its identity. It was another decade. Exactly how was another rider created? That might help us narrow it down a bit. AG tried contributing to the discussion. First, the time jackers find a suitable host for a rider's power, began explaining. Each of the time jackers has a different way of choosing dash. Wait a minute. Tsukasa interrupted, sensing that something was off. What's wrong, Tsukasa? Hey, AG? You said you felt something when another OO was here. Yeah? Can you explain how it felt? Well, it felt like something was calling out to me. Like it wanted me to find it. Why? Don't tell me. Realized why Tsukasa was asking quickly. Come on. We have to go. Opening a dimensional wall, Tsukasa was quickly joined by the other two riders. Nora! Run! John cried out as his two teammates were thrown away by an energy blast. Like his team's first match against the True Decade, another decade easily overpowered the group without breaking a sweat. He had already defeated Pyrrha, Penny, Weiss, and Blake. Without sparing a single moment thinking it over, the another rider quickly sent the blonde teen flying off as well, his sword dropping in the process. I ask you. Why are you trying to protect the Demon King? The another rider's distorted voice questioned them as it fought. Do you know what Tokiwa Sugo is truly capable of? What are you talking about? Me, a Demon King? Sugo, without any way to really fight the another rider, shouted from the sidelines. It should not surprise me that you do not remember your previous life, another decade said mostly to himself, that is why I must destroy you before you have the chance to reawaken your powers. You are not getting to him. RWBY screamed as she futilely tried shooting at the another rider with Crescent Rose. Despite only meeting him a few minutes ago, she had already sworn to protect anyone she can, no matter the cost. Pest, another decade simply said before shooting another energy blast and knocking her out of the way. Hands off her. In a fit of rage, Yang launched herself at the fake rider. Unfortunately, she, too, was swiftly taken out by its counterattack. I must admit, you all are quite careless with your lives. Another decade continued to mock them as he relentlessly continued on his path of destruction. Glancing around, Sugo tried to find something that could help him. Luckily for him, John's sword had landed near him. Don't even think about it, another decade had noticed him eyeing the dropped sword. Just accept your fate, King of Time. Why should I? Ignoring the warning, Sugo attempted to grab the sword. However, the another rider was much faster and managed to grab the teen by his throat quickly. You're not getting away this time. The another rider growled. So? You were the one who sent that half-and-half monster. Sugo spoke in between breaths as another decade was slowly choking him. Correct. Regrettably, I did not foresee that D-End would intervene. D-End? The monster was clearly referring to the man who had saved him. Now. The monster raised him higher off the ground, die. WAGAMAOH. Before another decade could deal the final blow, it was hit by a spear thrown by the neon green Kamen rider Waz, forcing the monster to let go of his would-be victim. Tsukasa, that is. Eiji, already transformed into his Tataba combo, stared at the another rider with surprise. Yes, that is the another me. Decade confirmed. Damn it! You found me faster than I thought. The another rider evidently was not expecting the three riders to arrive when they did. If you know me at all, you should have expected me appearing when you least expect me to. Tsukasa admonished his another rider counterpart. At least that is something we can agree upon. Despite coming face to face with the one person that could truly hurt it, another decade was quite respectful towards Tsukasa. Why did you bring Tokiwa Sugo here? Tsukasa asked calmly. Me? I did no such thing, another decade replied. I have every reason not to let Zio meet you again. Then who did? I doubt that the Overlord would be thrown out of his world as well. Ha ha ha. The distorted laughing was unsettling to hear for Sugo, who had managed to get away and hide behind the green rider who saved him. That's for you to find out on your own. But you are the one who is responsible for the another riders appearing in this world. You are absolutely correct in that. Just as you are bound by fate to help the Kamen riders, it is my duty to lead the another riders as your opposite. That bad for you then, Eiji spoke this time, we already defeated 4 of them. Ha 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 ha. The another rider simply started chuckled again, that does not matter. I could always make more. Observe. Suddenly, a dimensional wall was summoned. Emerging out of the silver wall were the 4 another riders they had previously beaten, all 4s, Phase, and Shinobi. What? Ha? Them again? Not again. I totally jinxed it. The 2 teams plus Penny had managed to get up and get behind the 3 riders. You. Tsukasa said, you're not Swartz. So, who are you? Isn't it obvious? I am you, Kamen Rider Decade. The another rider was taking great pleasure in mocking the true Decade. Get them. Hang on. Realizing that the situation had turned incredibly dire, Tsukasa summoned his own dimensional wall and sent all those near him into another world. An unknown time later, in a different world. Waking up, RWBY felt incredibly tired and had a massive migraine. Taking a look around, she didn't recognize the room she was in. Additionally, her friends, minus Sugo, were all also unconscious around her. They all, including Ruby herself, had blankets laid out on top of them. The room was a decent size, with several doorways connecting it to other rooms. The lack of light shining through the windows and the clock hanged on one of the walls showed that it was already nighttime. Additionally, the old-school camera and the backdrops that were there implied that the room was used as a photography studio. Arg! Ruby groaned in pain. Guys? You all right? I see that you are awake. A voice startled her. Sitting on one of the couches was the newest writer that appeared earlier that day. How she didn't notice him earlier, Ruby wasn't sure. You are Al. Ruby flinched, just thinking made her headache worse. You're Wiz, right? It's was. Sorry. Lying back down, Ruby hoped that it would help with her pain. What happened? We'll tell you once everyone wakes up. With that, Wiz got up and left the room. What happened? She thought despite her headache. All she remembered was that the evil decade was about to attack them again. Her professor then did something to everyone, and after that was a total blank in her memory. Ow! She heard someone else mutter near her. Ruby did not recognize who the voice belonged to immediately due to her headache. Where am I? Hey, you alright? Ruby asked without any hesitation. No. I feel so tired. Ruby realized it was actually Weiss who woke up second. Where are the professors? Don't know. I just woke up a couple of minutes ago. The leader of Team RWBY answered back. Only the new one was here. The new one? The green one, I mean. Arg. Nora? Are you okay? Ren had woken up as well and was looking for his partner. Rod? How do you feel? Ruby asked worriedly. Tired. And I have a terrible headache, so it was exactly the same as them. What happened? Weiss wondered, her memory also being blank. It hurts to think. Ruby rubbed her forehead. Hang on. Where's our weapons? As she had said, her beloved crescent rose was missing. There they are. Ren pointed tiredly to the back of the room, where all of the students' weapons were neatly placed. Oh. Good. Dang it, why did they feel so tired? Where's my scroll? Here it is. Weiss pulled out her scroll from her pocket, only for it not to turn on. Ugh. Why does head hurt? John had also woken up with a headache. Hey, Ruby. Can you turn on the lights? Weiss requested. Ha! Sure thing. Getting up, Ruby nearly collapsed again. Don't worry, I'm fine. She had to put on a brave face for her team. Now, where's the light switch? Here it is. Ow. She shouldn't have shouted as it only worsened her headache. Where are we? John asked from his spot, still lying down in exhaustion. Some sort of photo studio, I think. Ren answered back. A photography shop? Weiss seemed to have realized something. Professor Kadoya liked taking pictures, right? Now that she mentioned it, Ruby faintly remembered that the newest addition to Beacon's staff tends to go around campus and snap pictures of the students' daily life. Returning to her previous spot, Ruby tried rubbing her forehead again. Yeah. I think so. What was up with that guy who attacked us? Why did he look like the professor? John asked the other three. Don't know. I remember it saying that it was the professor's opposite or something. Ryan managed to recall despite his headache. Aura reserves near complete depletion. Switching to emergency energy source. What was that? Weiss asked, confusion clear in her voice. Oh. That was nothing. Hiccup dash. Penny tried to reassure, having finally woken up as well. Penny? Ruby felt relieved. Are you okay? Yup. I am completely fine. Hiccup dash. Penny said as cheerfully as she usually did. Hey Penny, Weiss spoke out. do you remember anything? Unfortunately, no. I think I blacked out when Professor Kadoya used his semblance. The professor's semblance? Ruby was confused by what her robotic friend meant. Assuming that the mysterious wall was Professor Kadoya's semblance, it seemed to be the reason we all fell unconscious. You might be right. Thinking for a moment, Ruby tried to recall if the professor ever used his semblance before. But does the professor even have his aura unlocked? I thought that's why he used that armor of his? John gave his own opinion. I'm not sure. The professor keeps a lot of secrets. Ruby said. Right, and it's not like he talks about it with anyone. Weiss pointed out. Silence quickly fell on the group. All they could really do in the meantime was to wait for the others to wake up. Hey, Ren? John called out his teammate, you've been a bit quiet ever since we started talking about Professor Kadoya. Ha! I'm usually quiet, John. He tried to deflect the subject away from himself. Rod? What do you know about the professor? Normally Weiss would speak a bit more firmly, but she was still too drained of energy. Nothing, Ren said quickly. Come on, Ren. We're all in this together now, John said, please tell us what you know. After a few moments, Ren sighed. He felt it was time to reveal what happened in the forest. You remember last Saturday, right? When the professor and I went missing for an hour? During your mission? Ruby recalled that day. Team JNPR fought against two new monsters that appeared out of nowhere. Yeah. Para, Nora, and I were looking for you too. Well, I saw Professor Kadoya run into the forest and I followed him. The forest? Why did he go in there? What happened? Weiss asked. The professor was investigating the people who were going missing. I was patrolling the edge of the village when I spotted Professor Kadoya asking one of the villagers some question. What was he asking about? I didn't hear. I was too far away. What happened next? Penny wanted to know more. Ow! Penny, please don't shout. Ruby pleaded with her friend. Sorry. I think the professor saw something in the trees and just going after it. And you trailed behind him. At first, I did. I managed to catch up to him halfway in. What was the professor running after? That's where things got a bit weird. Ren said, we came across a clearing with some people in it. People? What were they doing in there? I don't know. The professor did, though, or at least I think he did. Did you hear what they were talking about? Yeah. They were angry about someone being there. I think they were talking about the professor. Anything else? Yes. One of them ordered someone to send the experiments to Area 2A, Ren continued. Wait, Ruby realized where this was going. By experiments, you don't mean Dash. I think so. Whoever those people were, they were the ones who created the monster that attacked the village. How? John tried to process this new information. Those monsters were so powerful. How could anyone possibly create those things? Wait a moment, Weiss came to her own realization. You said that some of the villagers were going missing, right? Weiss. Ruby also realized where her partner was going with that. You don't think that. Ruby didn't want to think about it. That something so horrible had happened to innocent people. It's just a thought. I don't want to think about it either. And anyways. Ren tried to get back on topic. After hearing that, a purple vortex opened up, and those people went through. A purple vortex? Those monsters also came through a purple vortex. John pointed out. No. That confirmed it. Those monsters were the work of those from the forest, and what might have happened to the missing people all over Remnant. Wait a minute. The monsters only just arrived when you two returned to the village. How did you manage to get back so quickly? John questioned Run. How do I put this? We sort of teleported back. Run sheepishly admitted. By teleported, you mean? Yes, Professor Kadoya opened one of those silver walls. So, you knew about this for a while. John mumbled to himself. I'm sorry for not telling anyone. I was not sure of how I could have brought it up. I'm not angry, Run. John reassured. I mean, it's not something one could easily believe without seeing it for themselves. Yeah, and now that we all saw that weird thing that looked like the professor, we could easily believe that. Right, Weiss? Ruby turned to her partner. Well. Oh, come on, Weiss. Ow. I do believe you, Ren. It's just a lot to take in at once. How about you, Penny? Ruby turned to her metallic friend this time. Friendrin has no reason to lie about this. So, I believe 100% in his story. Penny wasn't talking loudly this time, already apologizing for that earlier. Thank you, Penny. Ren smiled at that. Sue, what else can we talk about? Ruby changed the subject. The other four were still unconscious. How about those monsters that appeared this afternoon? John was still curious about those monsters. They didn't look like the one the professor fought in the village. I'll have to take your word for it, Weiss said, as she was back in Beacon fighting/distracting another OO, but they were similar to the one our team fought in the Emerald Forest. The one that looked like Professor Hino, right? Ruby still found it unnerved that the monster looked so similar to the superhero. Yes. That was always odd to me. The one that looked like Professor Kadoya said that they are known as Another Riders, right? John recalled. Yes. It said that it was its duty to lead them like it was Professor Kadoya's fate to help the Kamen Rider. Ren confirmed. But what does Kamen Rider mean? Ruby asked, only hearing those words from Professor Kadoya's belt. I'm sure I heard the word Kamen before, Rin said. I don't remember where. Weiss hummed. What about Sugo? What about him? The other professor called him the King of Time and Demon King, and Professor Kadoya recognized him. Now that you mentioned it, that monster said ZO, I think? Ren said. What does that even mean? Not sure. Ha! Ruby sighed before trying to recall what else happened since the professor's arrival. The others are still sleeping. How long has it been since that battle? John wondered, taking a look at the clock. It's 1 o'clock? Ow. John. Sorry. Ugh. It was 1 a.m. in the morning. Do you think anyone noticed we're gone? In the world of Remnant. Someone definitely noticed that they were gone. Ashbin, along with his inner circle and Beacon, were all gathered in his office, watching the camera footage of Another Decade for the 100th time. No matter how many times they watched it, they were still unable to gather much about the other decade. Ashbin, if we had simply pressed them for more information we would still learn nothing, James. It was obvious that Professor Kadoya would not tell us anything /. It wasn't long before an argument started between the two headmasters. We don't know that. And now 8 of your students and Penny is missing. Ironwood was beyond angry at that. We don't even know where they are. Gentlemen. This is not the time to be quarreling. Glinda stopped the argument. If even for a moment, right now, we need to focus on the issue. That issue being the monster that showed up on Beacon's ground. Another one of the monsters that had recently been appearing all over Remnant. Although, from the footage, the newest one was clearly responsible for the 3 that had arrived earlier that day, along with the one in the Emerald Forest. Why did this one look like Tsukasa Kadoya? Is it possible that he was the one who brought them here? Ironwood completely distrusted the Magenta Traveler. No. Professor Kadoya clearly was against his look-alike. Ashbin countered. Unlike Ironwood, he had complete faith in the Kamen Rider. How did this even happen? Where were the other staff? Ironwood demanded. We were all still dealing with damage control, Glinda answered, irritated at his attitude. In case you had forgotten, 3 more had attacked Beacon this afternoon. Ozpin began to wonder, why do they look like Professor Kadoya and Hino? That was something only they could answer. I have every reason not to let Zio meet you again. Zio. That was what was called his master? To think that a young boy barely older than some of his own students had the moniker of Demon King was concerning. Ozpin? Is there any place that Tsukasa Kadoya might have run away to? Ironwood asked him, irritation still present in his voice. No, he never mentioned anything to me or anyone else. Outside of Eiji Hino, Beacon's temporary combat instructor did not talk with anyone when he didn't need to. Damn it all! Ironwood punched a wall in frustration, visibly cracking it. Let's all get some rest, Ozpin decided that was the proper course of action. We'll get a better view of the situation when we have a clear head. But Ozpin James, you've been sleep deprived these past few days. Get some rest. Hopefully, he'll take the advice to heart. How long has it been? Ruby asked. 20 minutes. Run had been regularly taking peeks at the clock. They're still not awake, huh? Admittedly, even those who had woken up were still feeling tired. While they wanted to get up and explore wherever they were, their lack of energy, as well as the fact that they were not sure when the riders would get back, stopped them. So, Penny. Yes, John? What was up with that thing you said? What do you mean? When you woke up. Something about low aura reserves or something? I was wondering about that too. Weiss joined in on the conversation. I have no idea what you two are talking about. Hiccup. You guys sure that you both heard that? Ruby jumped in, trying to protect her friend's secret. We're all a bit tired. John and I hallucinated hearing the same thing? Really, Ruby? Maybe? Ruby sincerely hoped she could steer the conversation away from Penny. Penny. Hey, guys. Ron interrupted. Are your auras active? What do you mean, Ren? Your aura. Can you guys use your semblances? Now that he mentioned it, Weiss tried to use one of her glyph. One that would not use much of her aura. Only for her to fail to even attempt to create it. No, I can't. Me neither. Ren said. I think I shouldn't try mine in here. Ruby sheepishly said. What happened to our aura? I don't think that the monster broke our auras earlier. Ron tried to recall what Professor talked about earlier. This world. What did you say, Ren? John didn't manage to hear what his teammate muttered. Professor Kadoya said something about this world with that monsters. Where are you going with this, Ren? Weiss asked. Do your weapons still have some dust in them? You're not saying what I think you're saying, right? I hope I'm wrong, but it's a strong possibility. What do you mean a strong possibility? Ow. Weiss immediately regretted shouting, that's impossible. Is it a bad time for me to say I am completely lost? Ruby didn't get what the two were talking about. Me too. John confessed as well. Ruby, Penny, on the other hand, managed to understand what Rin was implying. I think what Rin is trying to say is that we may no longer be on Remnant. Wait, what? That's simply absurd. Weiss tried her best to keep her voice down so she wouldn't give everyone another headache. Let's just check our weapons, just in case. Not to sound like stupid, but why? John cautiously said. According to some testing that Atlas had done, dust stopped working once it leaves Remnant's atmosphere. Run explained. I'll do it, Ruby volunteered herself before walking up to where their weapons were arranged neatly. Taking crescent rose in her hands, she carefully removed the magazine that she remembered was containing some lightning dust rounds. How is it? The dust is, well. You won't like this, Weiss. You are not seriously considering that we are somehow on another planet. I mean, what else could it be? Ren seemed to believe his own theory. All of our aura is completely drained, and our dust no longer works. What does our aura have anything to do with this? RWBY wondered. It is not that large of a leap to say that our aura disappears when we're no longer on remnant. Just like dust. Ron speculated. That could just be a coincidence. You may be right, Weiss, Ren admitted, but what other explanation is there? Well, that monster could have done something to our dust before we got away. That could be why our attacks didn't work on it. And our aura? John asked. The professor's semblance might have the side effect of draining all the auras of those who walk through it, Weiss tried to answer. That could also be why we collapsed instantly. Professor Kadoya used all of our auras for his semblance. But I went through it before, remember? It didn't do that before. Maybe it was the monster's fault as well. Weiss was not one who would back down easily. Ugh, please stop arguing. I'm getting another headache here, John grumbled from his spot. Let's just wait for the professors to come back. RWBY said they'd explain everything. Yeah, but when will they return? For all we know, they won't be back until morning. Then I propose we all go to sleep, Penny suggested. It'll be like a big sleepover. Of course, that was disregarding the fact that 4 of them were still out cold. Since we are not off remnant, Weiss stressed out the not part. Where do you think we are? Not sure. Are we even in Vale? Hey John, why don't you check what's outside the window? Let's see. John got up and walked towards one of the several windows. There's a red tower if that helps. A tower? Yeah, not a CCT tower, though. Let me see. RWBY moved over to one of the other windows and took a peek outside. Yeah. I have no idea where we are. Just as John had said, the most notable structure was a tall red tower quite a distance away. Other than that, there weren't a whole lot of other buildings that stood out. The city's incredibly bright. She noted that despite being in the dead of night, nearly every single building was glowing with lights. We're definitely not in Vale. And we're not in Atlas either. Weiss confirmed, having lived there all her life. Not a desert, so it's not vacuo. The terrain is not like Mistral either. We could just be in one of the minor cities. Weiss still did not believe that they were longer on remnant. But where? There are no other cities that are this big like the 4 kingdoms. Guys? What is it now, John? The moon. What RWBY now understood why John paused. What is it? The last 3 came up to the other 2, and they saw what was wrong with the moon. Or what wasn't wrong. High above the city, the moon was shining in the night sky, completely intact. To be continued.